Hello, we are back talking about the Florida Gators once again. This week might be a little shorter episode, not breaking down 25 names for who Florida's next head coach could be. But we do have two topics today, just talking about Mississippi State game from Saturday, particularly talking about Florida's defense, because that was really the main issue. I mean, Graham Mertz looked good. He had maybe his best game as a Gator. DJ Lagway impressed. The run game was pretty good. Uh, and I mean, that's not saying too much because Mississippi State is very bad. They're a bad defense. They gave up what, 42 to Toledo, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's kind of the bare minimum of you were successful against maybe the worst team in the SEC. And so we're focused on the defense, which still got gashed against a defense against an offense that's not great. It's fun, but not great. Blake Shapen went down at the end of this game, and I think they still had pretty good success in the run game. So we're just going to discuss that. And then I'm going to, with the help of Topher, break down a very important topic to me, and that is uniform combinations. Because Billy Napier, I get it. It's hard to scheme. It's hard to recruit. It's hard to make in-game adjustments. I'm not excusing this, but I get it. It's very difficult. I probably couldn't do it. But you know what I could do? I can pick out a fun jersey combination, and that is just not happening under Billy. And it happened under Dan, and I broke it all down in the spreadsheet. But we'll get to that later. So we'll just start, get right into the game. Topher, just initial thoughts on Florida's defense and Florida overall against Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think quickly overall, it was like a whatever game. To your point, Mississippi State is horrendous. Like this is a true no-hoper situation in Starkville this season. They might win one game all year. Or I don't know how many wins they have now, but they might not win again the rest of the year. Like it's bad, 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 bad. Um, and to that end, they mostly did their job. But holy God, this defense. And the crazy
It's
thing is
rough.
it's the same type of bad that it's been for like 6 years. Pre-Napier bad. Like there is no difference in level of lack of competency defensively from 2020 to now, pretty much.
It's crazy. I mean, you would think that something would change eventually. At least like you think it would be bad in different ways. But it
Nope.
just feels like the same thing over and over again. It's like, what are we teaching in practice? And what are we doing in practice all week? Like what goes on? I mean, Topher, just you want to lead off talking about some of the overlying issues?
Yeah, so I think there's some micro stuff with specific pieces that don't work, but I think the overall problem, and a lot of folks have kind of hit the nail on the head with this, is that even with three different defensive play callers in 3 years, and then even going back into the end of the Mullen years with Todd Grantham, like the scheme just puts guys in the wrong spot, and it does stupid stuff that doesn't work. Like the two main issues I have with the scheme, and I think it's the reason teams can just run down Florida's throat and they can just counter, 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 counter until the cows come home, is one, they're really light. Um, a lot of three down linemen, only two or three linebackers. They ask a lot of their safeties and nickels in the run game, and those guys are either really bad or just small. And it's like when you have a 180-pound nickel back against a right tackle, like what do you realistically expect? So they're just really little in the run game, defensive run game, which is ironic considering how huge their defensive tackles are, but whatever. Um, and then
Yeah,
the blitzes, man. What the hell is going on with that? Like the amount of times Florida will blitz from depth, whether it's a linebacker coming late, a safety coming late, a corner coming late, like it's what's the point? It's never going
I
to
don't
come
get
home
it.
'cause it's so late, and it's so easy to read. The last 2 weeks, it'll be the nickel comes off or Shamar James comes late or something like that. And the quarterback has all time to be like, oh, cool. I have a hot right there. My flat is right there. Nobody's covering him. Or there's a slant right there. Nobody's
It's
covering.
It's rough, man. And like I remember there was one play that I rewatched from the Mississippi State game where it's 3rd and 3 around midfield. Mississippi State hands the ball off and well, actually the slot receiver's in motion and he's running across, but he doesn't take the handoff and he's running out in the flat to the right sideline. And so there's a receiver there, and then there was a receiver on the left sideline who's locked up. I don't remember whichever corner it was in man, locks him up. Other guy's wide open in the flat. The only guy with his hips turned to him is a deep safety who's like 17 yards away. So if it were to be a play action pass and you were to toss it to him and check it down, it's a first down. So like everyone's playing the run. Everyone on Florida's defense is playing the run essentially. They have I want to say a 5-man front with a blitzing corner, and then they have 3 linebackers sitting right behind. One of those linebackers, might I add, he's playing as a linebacker, is Jason Marshall, which okay. And as the play develops, they're covering all the blockers, or they're taking all their assignments to the O line, and there's one hole, but then one of the linebackers plugs it up on the left side. I want to say there's the center, and there's 2 holes on each side of him that open up. One linebacker takes the other. And I keep rewatching this play over and over again because the play ends in a 10-yard gain because the running back takes the other hole that isn't plugged up. And I'm like, you have 3 linebackers. Where did the other one go? Like, shouldn't the guy who was on the right plug up that right hole, or at least the middle one? And I'm trying to figure out what happens. And the left he plugs in that right hole. So I guess he's doing what he's supposed to do. The middle immediately takes on the center. And then the right moves all the way around trying to blitz from the edge to come around like as if he's going to come around from the left edge from the right side and try and sack the quarterback on an inside run. And I don't get it. Like what was the end goal there?
Yeah, and I think that hits the nail on the head with kind of the discipline issue, I think, with this defense. And I think that's just if the scheme is bad coaching, the other bad coaching is these guys don't know what to do. They're not making sound football plays. And I think it happens at all 3 levels, specifically in the run game. So, like you're talking about the linebackers, they do weird stuff where they're not fitting gaps properly. Like you're saying, they'll try and make a play off the edge when they should just sit in a B gap and just kind of hold their ground there, or they'll crash too hard and the cutback's open, like whatever. Stuff like that happens all the time with the linebackers. And that's crazy because we know all those guys are good. Pop Howard is a good player.
Yeah.
Shamar James is a good player, but they're always somehow in the wrong spot. And then, but it's all 3 levels too, because I think the defensive line does this too. I think they have some good players in there. Caleb Banks, number 88, I think is a really good player. And he flashed a lot in this game. But a lot of these guys, what they're doing is they're trying to make the hero play. So they're trying to swim on a guy and get into the backfield. But the problem is then that's taking them out of the run fit. They're letting themselves get blocked because they're kind of leaning in to the blocking scheme and getting themselves out of the play instead of just kind of holding that block and letting the linebackers flow. So the amount of time that Cam Jackson, Caleb Banks, all of the young guys do this all the time, Collins and Cam James, all these guys do this all the time, where they're trying to get off the block and get into the backfield, but what they're actually doing is just playing right into the offensive hands. They're either getting pinned or they're getting walled off because they're trying to swim the other way. And it's just like, oh, now it's really easy to turn you and look at this giant crease that we created. So there's no integrity up front. The linebackers are doing crazy things. And then we don't even need to get into the safeties because good Lord, is that a disaster.
It's bad, man. And then I want to add real quick to your point about the defensive line. One of my favorite like screenshots that I took from the game is there's a play, I want to say it's early third quarter, if I remember correctly. It's either late second quarter or early third where Mississippi State drops back, I want to say for a pass. And if you watch the defensive line, somehow, they've sort of pushed because like Blake Shapen has dropped back a lot. So the offensive line sort of dropped back too. And the line of scrimmage is here. Like the line of scrimmage is at the 40. The offensive line has dropped back to about the 37 as the defensive line is trying to get pressure. Des Watson's at the 41. His offensive lineman, like he's so slow that his offensive lineman pushed him back. So he's still like past the line of scrimmage, or not even past the line of scrimmage. Like what happened? And so you have this giant gap where it's like Des Watson is 4 yards away from everyone else on the defensive offensive line. So I'm like, what happened? And
Yeah.
yeah, no, the safeties are rough. I think one of the biggest areas of concern for me, I mean, it's all just kind of rough, but like you'll see flashes every once in a while. Like I think Triquez Bridges had a pretty good game. I actually think Jason Marshall has actually had a pretty good season so far. Like in terms of pass coverage, I don't hate a lot of like them in man. It's just like they try to do mixes of guys in man and then guys in zone, and I don't
Yeah.
understand what's going on with
It
their
uh,
assignments.
okay. So on Florida's back end, I don't think the individual coverage is too bad. I think the corners are all pretty good. Jason Marshall looks like an NFL player. The young guys, Devin Moore, um, the other young fellas, is Dijon Johnson playing? Like, I don't actually know because they don't make mistakes, so you don't really notice them, which is
Yeah.
what you want in the corner, right? The corners are fine. The only one that got beat was Devin Moore, who got beat on like a go ball on the sideline, and he had great coverage. It was just an NFL throw from Blake Shapen. It is what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, Blake Shapen's not, he's not a bad quarterback. It's just the team
No,
around him is
he's
pretty
pretty good.
terrible.
There were two throws in that game when I was rewatching it this morning. It's like, wow, that's an NFL arm. That is what it is.
Yeah.
That's not bad coverage. Um, so I'm fine with the corners. The problem is the safeties stink and they're being asked to do stupid things. The zone schemes here are just dumb and bad and poorly executed. Like I don't think
It's
it's what's the point? What are we doing?
they're they're too like I don't know what it is. Like I think it just comes down to I mean, obviously it's a mix of both. It's skill development and it's also coaching, but like I don't understand like how can you watch that for that long and not try and do something different with your safeties? Like it gets to a point with these coaches where it's like, okay, you watch them in practice every week, you watch them in the games, and if this is the best you have and this is who you have to play, okay, play them, but then do something different with them because clearly what you're trying to do with them is not working. Like people keep talking about like what is it banning the two high safeties like ban it and it's like I think they should ban it because Florida's trying to do it and it's not working at all. Like they do it in pass coverage and the guys take so long to figure out their assignment or figure out where they should be going that by the time the ball's thrown they're burnt or they have so much time to go and close that gap. In the run game, dude, so many times I was watching that where Florida would put like 5 man, like a 5 man front, like with a corner or like a nickel, like someone blitzing off the edge. But then there'd be basically no linebackers. So once the running back, what do you know, easily broke through that line or got around the edge. The only one there to tackle him is a safety who's 10 yards away, and then they wait for them to come to him. Like I don't know how much you notice this too, but like something I know so often is like so many players in run defense don't go towards the ball. They wait for the guy to come to him. There was one play where Jason Marshall's uh in run defense and he doesn't close on the ball and it's a first down because he's standing past the line to gain and he waits for the guy to come to him to make the tackle. And it drives me crazy.
Yeah, and that passiveness is kind of frustrating. The other thing is when they do try and find the football, they take terrible angles,
They do.
especially the safeties, which they just have to destroy the safeties party because like holy moly, is it bad? They are caught so often. Like Jordan Castell, I like Jordan Castell. He took some angles against Mississippi State where it's like, golly, that's just a no-hoper situation. You're not going to get to the ball there, taking that angle, and it's tough. And then I think your other point that I liked about how they kind of set those 5 man fronts. I really noticed this against Texas A&M because I rewatched from our good friend Lib Gator, shout out the
Oh yeah.
King. I rewatched Florida's defense against A&M this morning as well. And especially early in that game, they tried to stop the run with these 5 man like bear-ish fronts. But like what you're saying is Florida's so bad at one setting the edge. Everyone not
Yes.
named TJ Searcy is terrible at setting the edge. Um, and they're really undisciplined inside, like I was saying, where they'll try and make a play, but they just take themselves out. Um, so the first line of the defense is not good enough at stopping the run on a down to down basis. And then it's just Shamar James, save us,
Yeah.
Shamar James.
Like, please. It's crazy, bro. Like, and to your point, like I think the safeties are definitely not have not been very good. I mean, people have literally been talking if Jordan Castell is like hiding an injury with like the way he kind of like avoids contact with the angles he takes. Like it's so weird. Where you're like, this isn't football, man. And but I think the biggest issue is their edge rushers. Like, oh my God, they can't get any pressure whatsoever on the quarterback. They can't get around the edge ever to sort of blow up a run play that you'll see happen to Florida, where an edge rusher will get in the backfield and just get Montreal Johnson immediately. Um, and it's just like it makes everything else worse because you don't get pressure. And so, okay, we like the corners. We've liked how they played this year. They can only guard so long if the defense isn't going to get pressure. We've talked about how the safeties are already kind of a liability. Well, that's only amplified so much more when there's no pressure. So then they have to wait. The play develops longer and they're even, caught out in the open even longer. We talk about the linebackers. Please save us, Shamar, please. Their job is only going to be so much harder because they have to account for, okay, is this running quarterback going to run? Are they going to run it? Is it a screen? Is it, now do I have to play a little pass coverage because the play is developing more? Like, I don't understand what has gone on because it's like, other than Searcy, like a lot of these guys are older. Like they've been with the program for years and they just aren't like very good. I don't
Yeah.
I don't get
And
it.
it, I'm looking at the roster right now just to kind of, to your point, these guys are old. They're either old experienced transfers or guys like Justice Boone who've been around forever. Um, and yeah, there's just no dynamism from the edge rushing group. And I hate to say his name because I miss him so much, but Princely Umanmielen, like that guy could be a game wrecker,
Exactly.
right? He wasn't consistent game to game, but like he has so much ceiling just with his individual skill set that he could just make plays happen. And there's nobody except sometimes Searcy that has that kind of game breaking ability. And I think I'm kind of looking at this roster to try and see if there's a common theme with the problem. And I think it's a development and like personnel issue in terms of how they're using guys. And I think they're too big.
I think that
I
it's
think
I think it's both. I think they're both too big and too small. Like
like their edges, I think they are making their edges put on too much weight to the point where they're not explosive enough. Like
it's
Kelby Collins is
crazy.
like 280 and like he should be a little, I feel like they should be working to kind of get him a little more explosive on the edge. Instead, he's just like a tween. They're kind of turning edge rushers into tweeners instead of making them dynamic edge rushers.
Here's my issue and kind of I don't disagree with your point, but like they're I feel like the whole point of like reason why they are making them so big is I don't know if they're athletic enough. Like Justice
That's a
Boone is
problem too.
266 and he's rushing off the edge. And it's like, use your eyes. He's so small and he gets blown up off the edge, like by the either the right guard or the left guard or left tackle or right tackle, whichever side he usually rushes from. But but he is like maybe I can get into the numbers and maybe it's sort of a Princey situation where Princey didn't have the highest sack number last year, but you look at his pressure rate and you look at how many QB hurries he forced, and it's like, okay, no, he's making an impact on the game. Maybe not as consistent as you want, but there is a clear like impact he's making, even if it's not shown up in the box score immediately. With Justice Boone, I don't see that. Or not just or yeah,
He doesn't do
with
it. He
with
doesn't do
Tyreek
anything.
Sapp, like with these guys, like with Jack Pyburn, like what I am seeing is them just getting kind of mauled by the offensive linemen. I don't understand what they're doing. And like I think a lot of it this has been an issue for so long and I don't understand how you don't just and I mean I think they made a change this year, but like the strength and conditioning is just not it's not good enough.
No, it's not good enough. And kind of again with this too small, I think that's the thing is that so many of these edge and defensive end types, they're all tweeners now. Is that a guy like Cam James? is he's kind of playing like a down three tech, but he's 267 pounds. He's just getting blown up in the middle of the offensive line. He should be, they should be working on him, like helping him be more of an explosive edge guy, which is what he was billed as a high 4-star recruit, right? And same thing with Kelby Collins, is that he's an edge guy, but they're kind of bulking him up. So now he's just kind of a tweener three tech. It's like they're turning the entire team into Tyreek Sapps.
It's
And I
crazy.
like Tyreek Sapp, but he's just not big enough to be a tackle and a little too slow to be an edge. And they're just like, yeah, give me 100 of those.
It's crazy. I mean, it's like I just looked up Dylan Stewart just because I was curious. He's 6'6", 248. And it's like he'd be like the lightest guy on Florida's defensive line, and he's better than all their edge rushers already.
Yeah, they don't have explosion.
And
There's
like
no one
James Pierce Jr., 6'5", 243. Like again, he'd probably be the smallest edge rusher on the Florida Gators, and he's better than all of them.
exact. It's like and I know it's more complicated, it's more nuanced than just like body types and like how you develop these guys physically, but all these guys, they're making them into big ends and they don't have any explosive edge guys. The closest thing they have is TJ Searcy. And guess what? He's 6'5", 260, which is, I think, the smallest guy in their edge room, weight wise.
How big is LJ McCray? Because I know he's a
He's like
freshman. So
260. He's 6'6", 260.
gosh,
And the problem is, as a prospect, he was also sort of a tweener just out the jump. And I still think he's just a good enough skill set that he can just be a dude. He's one of the few guys who's flashing some moves as like a pass rusher. But again, he's on the same thing as that. Like, what do you do with him? Like from a strength and conditioning, physical development. Do you try and work on explosion and slimming down, or you try and bulk up? And I don't trust this staff to make the right decision to develop him as a player.
yeah, it's I don't get it. It's like it's almost I'm curious. I would have to. This is something that I don't think either of us have done, but I feel like I kind of want to now. I want to go back and watch those Austin Armstrong Southern Miss defenses because they were admittedly very good. I mean, he got to Florida for a reason. Like maybe you could say he wasn't prepared enough, but he did have, good things that have happened in the past with defenses where he worked his way up the ladder. I mean, he was at Alabama as the linebackers coach before, and then he immediately took this Florida job. So I'm almost curious if like they got really big in the Sun Belt, like with Billy, he was like, let's get these guys really big, and then in Southern Miss, Austin Armstrong was like, let's get these guys really big and playing that tweener role. And it's like because you're really big, then like you can mow over these small offensive linemen in the Sun Belt, and then like that doesn't work in the SEC. And I don't because I don't know. I don't get it. Like this is just
Yeah.
not like a
And then
winning strategy.
and the thing is they do have the big guys, but the really big guys are so slow. It's like I love Des Watson, but unless you're running right into him, he's kind of useless.
Yeah.
And Cam Jackson makes some plays, but again, he's just so slow that it's like there's only so much he can do.
Watching Des Watson try and move off his lineman and then catch a running back in an outside run it's hard to watch, man.
Yeah, and like the
It's
only one of the big guys that I think is worth a dang is Caleb Banks. Because and shocker, he's the only one that has kind of the physical profile of like an NFL three tech. He's like 6'6", 320, which is big, but it's like reasonably big. It's
yeah,
not too big to be useful.
exactly. And like I think just the biggest emphasis, like I want to focus on one drive that I was watching pretty closely, and that was the Mississippi State's touchdown drive just before the half. Florida had just scored. There's like a minute left before halftime. And here's what I noticed. First play, Mississippi State gets a big chunk play because Bryce Thornton, as the safety, is sort of laying off his man. You have two linebackers covering the same slot receiver. And so then there's another receiver from the right boundary, kind of curls across, cuts across into the middle of the field, and he's wide open because you have Bryce Thornton as the high safety, and he doesn't move in. He kind of just waits and watches. He tries to see what's gonna develop, but like You need to do something, guy. There's a wide open receiver in the middle of the field. And then you could say maybe it's one of the linebackers. Maybe one of the linebackers should move off of the slot since you have literally two of them on the same receiver who's running just a short curl. Um, but they both stay on him. Maybe one of them should have dropped back to the middle and then caught that up. I don't know who that's on. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's linebacker. Maybe it's Bryce Thornton. Either way, it's a bad coverage plan, if the assignments are this out of whack. So they get a big play off that. Next play. I I don't have like the all 22 of this, so I couldn't see the full play. All I know is that Shamar James is tasked with guarding a receiver running a vertical, running a go route down the middle of the field. And it's like, I like Shamar James a lot, but why is he trying to guard a receiver running 30, 40 yards down the field? That is not a recipe for success. Where are the safeties? Where are the corners? What is going on? So then that's another huge play. I think it goes for like 30, 40 yards because Shamar James just can't keep up with the speed of the receiver because he's a linebacker. Shocker. And then the next play, so it's, they're now in Florida territory. They decide to run the ball because Florida's doing that thing where they have a five-man front and there's no linebackers and they're playing two high safeties. So they just run it, and of course they get to the line because the line doesn't close the gaps, and the only one there are the two safeties, and they get juked out of their pants because they take a really weird angle, so it's super easy for the running back just to make a move, and then it's first and goal, and then they score a touchdown later. I think it was just a Blake Shapen scramble for a touchdown. I don't remember how exactly the scoring play itself, but it's just like three plays in a row where it's like bad assignments, bad assignments, bad assignments. And it's like, what are they doing? Like, what's going on? Like, I know like the players, like some of it is on them. I don't want to completely excuse these players of these plays, but like, what is the coach calling? What is he saying out there where he's like, this is what's going to work? I don't get it.
Yeah. And I think it all kind of boils down to another issue with the coaching is that I don't know if the players are either confident or knowledgeable enough about what they need to do. Because a good defense just does the thing very instinctively and very fast. You can tell if a defense is well coached with how fast they do what they're supposed to do. And Florida's defense is so flat-footed and reactionary, which makes me think that they're just not well coached and they're not confident in their assignments to get the job done, which means either the players know this scheme is terrible or the players don't understand it well enough to execute it at a high level, or they're just not being developed properly within it because there's just a lack of instinct and a lack of like high level fast football that's needed to execute defense.
It's frustrating to watch. It's not ideal, and it's going to be very curious because they gave up what? How many rushing yards they gave to Mississippi State? Do you remember?
Like 260, something like that.
Yeah, and now UCF has a top rushing offense, and they're gonna potentially run all over Florida in 2 weeks. Hopefully they have a bye week, so they have some time to fix it. But it's been all season. I mean, it's every team that plays them, other than Samford, but that's Samford. And that goes back to what I said 2 weeks ago, where I, said I wasn't trying to move the goalpost, even though the defense played good. It's like we saw them play good against McNeese last year, and then we saw the rest of the tape, the rest of the games, and it's the same thing this year, where they played good against FCS school, but now we're seeing it against every other team, and it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like I don't understand what you do. I don't really understand where you go from here. Is basically what I'm saying.
You just can burn it all down and really just simplify. If they just simplified the defense, I think it'd be a lot better because then guys can just play fast. I think they're being asked to do too much and it's making it hard to just execute. You see it with the safeties, you see it with the linebackers. If you just simplified things and just said, go make football plays, I think that'd be good. I also think they could benefit from playing some of the younger guys who are faster and more aggressive.
I agree. I mean, it's just like, come on. I can't watch Sharif Denson try and blitz off the edge anymore. I can't do it, man. I like Sharif Denson. I think he's a good player, but he should not be blitzing off the edge. He had a couple plays where they tried that and he just got just completely decimated immediately, and he's just like taken out of the play, and it's just like that's not good football. So, do you have anything else you want to add to that? Basically, just any
No,
final thoughts?
I think that sums up the defense. I do want to just quickly 10 minutes or so on the offense. I had some notes from this game, mostly fun stuff because they got to play a bad defense and they looked good. So we can celebrate. We can do some fun talk because I think my main takeaways is that the game plan was really good. Mississippi State, I complained about Florida being light in the ass defensively. Holy moly, Mississippi State. They play like three down linemen and three high safeties. So like Florida just went in 12 personnel. They brought out Tony Livingston, who's huge. And it's just like, we're just going to punch you in the mouth because
Yeah,
you're so tiny. And it worked.
it was good. It was fun to watch, and I will say this game sort of, I know it's Mississippi State, I know the defense is good, but it really amplifies our point I think we made either last week or 2 weeks ago, talking about how they played the wrong wide receivers. This team has Trey Wilson, who has been out, who is like one of the most dynamic receivers in the country. He's fast as hell. He's super shifty. And it looks like they basically have two of them now with Aiden Mizell. I mean, the plays he was making on Saturday were like,
It's gross, dude. He's got great knees. It's crazy.
yeah. I mean, they had the one play taken back because of the block in the back, which was, we're not going to talk about that. I'm not going to get into penalties or like whether or not it should have been called. But, regardless, that was just a ridiculous play from Mizell there to get all those yards. And he made so many of those, just like so many of those plays again were just Graham Mertz check down, Graham Mertz in the flat, Graham Mertz wide receiver
Well,
screen. And
I also
it
think
worked, but like,
the screen game worked well because you have a guy like Mizell who can beat a defender 1v1.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not like, this is not me complaining about the play calling. This is more so like Graham Mertz is doing his usual thing, but it's working like so well because you have a guy like Mizell. And so it's like you have Mizell, you have Trey Wilson, and it's like, why is
Marcus
Marcus
Burke on the
Burke on the
field.
field? Look, he did have a nice touchdown catch, but it's like, what are we
Yeah. To that point, I think the receiving core is good. I think Mizell, Wilson, Elijah Badger, and Chim DK. I think all four of those guys are really good.
doing? And like it was funny because like there was a brief moment in the game where Graham Mertz just turned into a gunslinger, just like launching balls down the field. But for the most part, like he was the what like had an insanely high completion percentage because so many of those passes were like he had an A dot of like maybe 1 yard, 2 yards, and those turned into 10, 15 yard completions because Mizell is just a special player. And so it's like if that's your game plan, if that's what you want to do, cool, do it because you have the talent at receiver to do that. You have Trey when he's back. You have Mizell, right now. You have, TJ Abrams, Tank Hawkins. Like you have so much speed where it's like you could dink and dunk and it could work because your guys are like just insanely fast humans. To quote Tom Brady on Sunday, how fast is I don't remember which player he's talking. I think he was like, "How fast is Lamar Jackson?" Fast, and that's what I have to say about these wide receivers, man. So I'm like I don't want to diss Marcus Burke in particular because I think he's a pretty good player, but like there's speed on the field. Use the speed. Like
Yeah.
I don't
And
want to see any more reps of Taylor Spirito, man.
exactly. You have the speedy young guys, and then Badger and DK are good enough all around receivers to kind of widen the route tree. So those are your two outside guys that can do everything. And then you have Mizell and Wilson just kind of cooking, doing crazy stuff.
Exactly. And so it feels so simple, but maybe we're just, I don't know. Maybe we're
Yeah.
missing something.
Um, I have some other offensive notes. We'll just quick run through it here. So we're still doing that offensive line rotation thing.
It's never going to stop, man.
It's so stupid because Austin Barber and Najee Harris are so good. They're constantly doing good things. And then it's like, actually, it's time for Devin Manuel and whoever 50 or the other guy, 53.
Bryce
It's
Lovett, is that who that is?
yeah,
Or
but it's time for Devin Manuel and Bryce Lovett, actually. It's just like, why? Why? What are we doing? And the
it
right side of
doesn't
the
make
offensive line is
sense.
still terrible.
It's not good. And Jake Slaughter's nice. Jake Slaughter,
Yeah.
very, very
Slaughter,
good center.
Harris, Barber, thumbs up. George, Crenshaw Dixon, huge, gigantic thumbs down.
It's tough. It's tough.
Um, and then I want your thoughts on the running backs. Because rewatching that, Treyon Webb is violent. He
Dude,
is
he's
a
good.
violent football player.
He is a
He
good
was
running back.
he was hitting people. I loved it.
I think I saw some people on Twitter talking about how Montrell Johnson's not very good using that one stat line from Saturday's game. I don't agree. I still think Montrell Johnson's a very good back, but I think what Saturday proved is that he doesn't have to be the workhorse back that was initially thought of going into this season. Because the thing with Montrell is like I think he's still a pretty explosive receiver or running back, and I still think he's a decent receiving back, and I think he's probably one of their best blocking running backs, which you kind of need with how bad the offensive line is on the right side. Uh, so I definitely still think he's good, but I think what we learned is like, losing Trevor Etienne obviously is very tough, but you have guys behind Montrell who are, ready to fill that role. Like it's like Moneyball. Like, we can't replace Trevor Etienne just 1-to-1, but we can replace him in the aggregate. We have Treyon Webb and Jaden Bond, Katie Daniels. Uh so I think that was nice to see. I still would like Montrell as RB1, but I think Treyon Webb getting some more play as time goes on. Jaden Ball maybe a little
Also,
bit more.
I was liking little Jacoby Jackson
Oh
action.
yeah.
He was nice.
Catholic
He was
high school
nice.
Pensacola legend.
He was
Shout out
nice.
Pensacola native Jacoby Jackson. No, they have it's a good running back room. That's like that's the thing. The skill positions are not the issue. Because I like their receivers and I like their running backs. It's just they don't have anybody to block for them in the
Yeah.
offensive
When they
line.
have functional offensive line play, Florida's offense is good, but so often the offensive line is like unplayably bad.
Yeah. So, we'll see. We'll see as the season goes on. They start playing better defenses more often. I mean, that stretch where they play Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. Well, less so LSU, but Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss. That's going to be a very interesting 3 games. It's just like, man, the schedule, for all that's been said about how hard the schedule is, if Florida looked more functional, it really could be a decent year. Because like you think maybe you're 3-1 instead of 2-2 if you had maybe game planned a little better for Texas A&M rather than immediately getting punched in the mouth. Uh, UCF, they have a good run game, but KJ Jefferson is kind of a question mark for me. Like he's just not looked very good with UCF so far. Tennessee on the road,
That's a loss. You can
but
try.
like
Tennessee might win the national championship. That team's good.
yeah. But after that, it's like you get Kentucky at home, and Kentucky's just like kind of gross to watch. And and after that, it's like that 5 game stretch that everybody talk about the hardest schedule in the country. Like LSU at home is not as bad as it seemed before, and FSU on the road, like they did unfortunately beat my Cal Golden Bears, but they still don't look great. I mean, they only scored 14 points in that game, uh, and they're just like I don't know what's going on with that FSU team. So it's like 2 and 3 from that stretch is extremely doable. And then you pair 2 and 3 with do the math in my head. Beat UCF, beat Kentucky. So you're 4-3, 2-3. So there's a 6-6 path is still very attainable. I don't think that's enough to save Billy Napier's job because
Shouldn't
their
be.
recruiting is like, what's going on? Does Billy just like give up? Like where are the commitments, man?
Yeah, it's bad.
But like there is a path to 6-6 if the offense can continue to keep playing like this and the defense can figure out how to do literally anything, then there is a path. I don't know if it'll happen, but it's there in front of them. It's there for the taking. But that's kind of all I have to say about the offense stuff. Is there anything else you'd like to add about that?
No, I think I'm pretty much in agreement with you.
Yeah. So this gets us into our second part that I'm very excited to talk about. And so a lot has been said about the Billy Napier tenure on the football field, on recruiting. And this is not me excusing it. but I get that it's hard. It's hard to scheme. It's hard to game plan. It's hard to make in-game adjustments. It's hard to recruit. You know, none of these things are easy, especially with the pressure at a place like Florida. Uh, I could probably never do it, and I admit that. It's very difficult. I mean, you knew you were taking when you took the job, so it should be, you should be doing a better job at it. So this, like I said, this is not me excusing him, but I understand the difficulties of this. The one thing that I could do as a coach, and the one thing that I wish Billy Napier did a better job at, that is literally the easiest thing to do, that takes no scheming whatsoever, is a uniform combination. What jerseys, what threads are you bringing to the field? And maybe you don't care. Maybe you're like, whatever. It's literally just jerseys. I like jerseys. Uniforms in college football are very cool. It's very fun to talk about. It's very fun to look at. It's very aesthetically pleasing to the eye. And Billy Napier is so boring in that aspect. And we've talked about this a lot in the past, and we've kind of just said it and going and not really like looked into it. Well, I looked into it. I went through every game since Mullen in 2018 to break down the jersey combinations to see if it was just us, thinking this, like maybe recency bias, or if it's really as boring as it seems. And shocker, it is. So I broke it down, and so here's where I have it. Mullen coached, I gave him 50 games. It was technically 49, but I gave him the FSU game because that Greg Knox coach, because I'm going with the assumption that that uniform was already planned. And like regardless of Mullen coaching it or not, that was what they were going to wear. So I gave him 50. And as of right now, Napier's coached 29. So the standard home, the orange helmet, blue jersey, white pants, or the orange helmet, white jersey, blue pants is what I consider their standard home or standard road. Of Dan Mullen's 50 games, they wore the standard home or road 24 times. So about just under half the time. With Billy Napier, they've worn it 19 times out of 29. So almost the entire time they've just worn their classic home and away. And something else I noticed is that Mullen only wore the big game blues 5 times across 50 games, only 5. And Napier wore it 5 times already. Like it's like his crutch for like an alternate is like we have to wear the big game blues. And of unique home and alt, and this is not even saying like, oh, they did something entirely different, like all white or like a white helmet with like orange or like a throwback. Like this is just literally any uniform combination that is not the standard home, the standard road, or the big game blues. Billy Napier or Mullen did it 21 times. 8 times at home, 13 on the road. Napier's done it 5. And to go even further, I broke it down into 4 categories. I broke it down in the category of this uniform combination was the correct call. It matches their tradition. Examples of that wearing the big game blues against LSU. That's something Florida always does. They wear the big game blues, the orange, blue, blue combo against LSU. I said not really tradition, but it's still really cool. That's like the throwbacks. Like Florida, they didn't used to have a tradition of wearing throwbacks on homecoming, but now they did under Mullen, and it was really cool. I had yellow for there was no really tradition linked to this opponent, but it was still like okay, like this was nice. That's like wearing orange, white, white against South Carolina. Not really a tradition. Like there's not really a tradition linked to that opponent. You just had to wear an alternate. Cool. And finally, red, which is this wasn't a tradition. Why did you wear this combination versus this opponent? And that's again, I'll bring Mullen just as an example. He wore all orange against LSU. They've done it before, but it's like why? It's like I feel like that's just like a game where you wear the big game blues against LSU. So of that category, Mullen did 7 times was the correct call when they were alternates. 8 times, not really tradition, but really cool. 2 bad calls, and that was the orange, white, white for a whiteout against FAU at home and the all orange against LSU. So that's 2 times where it was like this didn't make sense in 50 games. And 9 times no tradition linked, but still pretty cool. With Billy, only 3 times have I given him the correct call. That was last year. He wore the big game blues against Tennessee, big game blues against LSU, and the big game blues against FSU. It's like, okay, good. You learned when to wear the big game blues. Cool. He's only bringing out 1 cool alternate. That was the all black against Arkansas. That's already been scrapped for this season. And I gave him three, not really tradition, but pretty cool. Like example, orange, blue, orange with the orange pants against Sanford, which I think they've only won the orange pants once under him. Or sorry, they won against Vandy on the road his first year. And then five times I gave him bad calls. What are you doing? And I'm just gonna go over those real quick. Year one, they were the standard home against LSU. You don't do that. That was Jaden Daniels' first year at LSU. They come to the swamp, big matchup. I think both teams are 4-2 or somewhere around that record. And Billy Napier was standard home. Why did you do that? And then he did bring out the big game blues, but it was against South Carolina, who was not very good. And like, why would you do that? I don't get it. And that was late in the season too. It wasn't like homecoming, let's bring it, because the homecoming game was against Mizzou that year and they just were standard home. So that's two his first year. I gave him one last year. They wore orange, white, white against Kentucky. If you're gonna wear an alternate on the road against Kentucky, you got to bring out the orange pants because they're blue. You bring out the orange. And then I gave him two this year. Standard home against Miami because A, it was a color game. They decided to do a whiteout, which if you're gonna do that, I think you should wear all white. Or if you're not, you should do big game blues. Wearing the standard home and Miami goes all white to counteract your whiteout to make it look like they're the home team and to make it look like they're invading your home stadium is a bad look. And last week against Mississippi State, where Mississippi State's doing a whiteout. So let's do an all color matchup. Like Arkansas last year, when Florida did all black, Arkansas did all white, and it was very aesthetically pleasing. But because Billy Napier is boring, he wore the standard home because he stinks. So that's just like a quick rundown of that. Topher, would you like to add anything to just how boring Billy Napier is with
Yeah.
uniforms?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you in that I love uniforms in college football, and there's two ways to view uniforms in college football. You have uber traditional, so that's what I consider Notre Dame, Texas, Alabama, Penn State, USC. Like you have a look, it's super iconic, it's great. And then you have like your Oregons of the world where they just kind of do whatever and it's fun and exciting. And Billy's leaned too far into the traditional because I think in the Mullen era, uniforms at Florida were so fun. It was so fun. Lots of orange, which is underutilized. Like Billy killed orange. What the
He
hell?
did. It
We
sucks.
haven't seen an orange jersey in almost 3 years, dude. What are we doing? I
It's
love the
crazy.
orange jersey. The throwbacks. That was awesome. Why did we kill that? That was awesome. I think all 3 years the throwbacks was cool. Um, we've worn one alternate helmet in the Napier era. The Mullen years is like, let's get crazy. Let's do white helmets. Let's do blue helmets.
Exactly.
Let's just cook. And that's just gone. So I think Florida as a program, like, yeah, the standard home, standard way, like it's an iconic look. But I think Florida has a rich enough history of chopping and changing and doing different things that to just not do anything fun is really lame and a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, because like you look at even like with McElwain, that's when they first brought back the white helmets. And then they also wore those, say what you will about the swamp green, the gator print alternates. I personally am not a fan, but it's like you tried something. You tried something different, you got experimental. So like there was experimentation under McElwain. You saw them wear plenty of alternates under Urban Meyer. I actually am not sure what the Muschamp alternates look like. I think they were pretty boring for the most part. But it's just like, and to your point about the helmets, like let's see. First year in Mullen, they brought out the all white. So they wore the white helmets against Georgia. So they had one different helmet his first year. His second year, they brought out the white throwback helmet against Auburn. They brought out a white, blue, white. So white helmet against Vanderbilt. So that's two helmets to go with the orange. 2020, that's when he really went off during COVID. They wore blue helmet throwbacks against Mizzou. They wore a regular blue helmet with the Gators script on the side against Tennessee. They wore a white helmet against Vanderbilt. Um, so you see a lot there. And then his last year, they wore the all white helmet against USF. They went I want to say orange helmet throwback against
With the
Vandy.
great face mask.
Yeah. So it's like it's not like there was an insane amount, but it's like And I think that's the biggest thing is like you can be traditional. Like he still wore it 24 times of wearing the standard home or the standard road, half the time. And that's enough to where it's like, okay, you're not straying too far away from being traditional, because the Florida home and away are so iconic. But you're still doing enough experimentation, or at least enough like little tiny tweaks in the alternate, like maybe you wear orange pants against Kentucky, or like you wear throwbacks for homecoming, where you're bringing in new combinations that are exciting to see. And
Yeah. It's not even you don't even have to reinvent the wheel. You could just keep wearing like throw in the all orange, throw in the orange, white, throw in the 2019 throwback, just spice it up throughout the year.
I think the biggest thing too is like, I know this is maybe a little bit more subjective, and maybe there's not really empirical data to this. Like you'd have to just kind of go through what recruits say. But I think there is something to cool uniforms playing into bringing in recruits to your team. Like obviously, if I say that, and some of my immediate reply is like, well, that's not an issue for Bama. That's not an issue for Georgia. That's not an issue for Texas. Here's the thing: those programs win a lot. Like it's easy to bring those recruits in, even if your jerseys are, quote unquote boring, even though I like the traditional sometimes, is like because they win. It doesn't matter. Like you can wear khaki pants and they win a national championship and they're still gonna bring in recruits. Florida doesn't win. They're not a very good football team. And so you know what helps with that? Looking cool on the field, look good, play good at least. Like if you're not gonna win a lot on the field to like have that incentive for recruits, at least be like, hey, you want to look fly as hell. Like you want to rock a all white combo and then the next week rock like an all orange or like a cool throwback. Like come to Gainesville. Like we have cool jersey combinations. But because Billy is so sort of stuck on just being this is the tradition, we're gonna wear the standard home and the standard road almost all the time, you don't have that. You don't have that aspect in recruiting. And I don't like obviously that's not the biggest factor obviously, but like it is a factor. I think that's undeniable. I
Yeah.
mean, look at Oregon. Obviously, again, I'm not going to say the number one reason recruits go to Oregon is because they're all their cool jersey combinations and they wear a new one every single game, but like I think it would be crazy to say that wasn't at least some sort of factor in helping build their brand of like, oh, they're the cool team. They wear new sick uniforms every game. Like that's cool. So I would like to see some more variety, please. I'm begging. Like with Mullen his first year, they wore they deviated from the standard home and road one, two, three, 5 times out of 13 games. So you can still be boring for 8 games and still like a little under half the time wear an alternate. And it's like, that's enough. That's fine. But with Billy, it's like he's so stuck on trying to wear alternate or trying to be traditional that it's like it's boring. And it's like if the product on the field is not fun to watch, and at least try and make it more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. But that just doesn't happen. Tougher, anything you would like to add to that?
No, I just hope the next coach is more fun with uniforms.
I hope so as well, but we will see. Um, so yeah, that kind of wraps it up, I think, for our Florida talk. Is there anything else you'd like to add overall, just about anything we talked about today?
No, I think we got way deeper into the weeds about the issues of Florida's roster and defensive construction. I think that's exactly what we need at this point.
I agree. Because he's still there, he's still coaching, so it is what it is. But yeah, so that was it. Notre Dame, they can now beat MAC teams, so that's huge. Big step in the right direction.
Huge step in the right direction. Was a little shaky in the first half, not gonna lie. Riley Leonard still sucks.
Don't worry about
Louisville
it.
this
Don't worry
week.
about it.
Louisville this week. That's all I'll say.
There you
Louisville this
go. And then Cal finally. I knew it, man. I knew if they started 3-0, they were gonna lose to FSU, man. And it happened. It did. In
Hey,
very
huge
frustrating
opportunity on
fashion.
deck. Huge
True.
opportunity on deck.
College game day, come to Miami, please. But yeah,
Where are
I
they going
think
this week,
that's
Bama?
yeah, Bama, Georgia. this Saturday, and then next week is Cal Miami. So that'll wrap it up for this episode. Just a lot of defense and Jersey talk. So thank you for tuning into another episode. This has been two Florida fans. I don't want to. I'm trying to think of something new, but there hasn't been anything new. Uh, I'll say this: two Florida fans not shoving a 5-layer beefy burrito up their ass. We will not be doing that. So thank you for listening.